Hi, everybody. I hope you had a great Thanksgiving. Let's get right to the headlines. And just to start out on a good alarming note, voters in America see the American dream slipping out of reach. Now, anybody of any certain age, of which I am of a certain age, I've heard this all my life, from when I was a little kid all the way to now when I'm going downhill. This is a perpetual kind of article that you will see. People always say it's not as good as it used to be. Sometimes that's true. Often it's not true. I believe now there's probably some reason to think this is true, but it's also getting into an election year cycle. And so that means that these sort of articles that will provoke people to think we need to make a change, or we need to even re-empower the guy who's in power to make some change for our benefit because things are wrong. I always remember the 2016 Democratic Convention where they kept repeating it over and over. Hillary has a plan. You know, they posit all these things that are not good, that are terrible about the country, and we got the money. We're gonna change it, and we're gonna help you out. So this is the article in that sort of vein. Here we have escape from hell, the hostage situation in the Middle East, the temporary truce between Israel and Hamas, which again I feel like I should always emphasize Hamas is not the Palestinian people or the Palestinian cause. There is a Palestinian authority that is supposed to govern Gaza and the West Bank. And now they just govern the West Bank because Hamas is a terrorist organization that's believed to be backed and directed by Iran that had a coup and took over the Gaza Strip. So it doesn't really make much sense to plead a common cause with Hamas, as they're an illegitimate terrorist group that is trying to they're probably acting on behalf of Iran to queer the good relations and the chances for peace that Israel might have had with its neighbors if not for this situation right now. And we have rape charges, sexual assault. This is sort of interesting here. So what's happening in the United States with every day? You know, we have different people who are being sued, and we have to be clear that people like Jamie Foxx and Cuomo, the politicians there in New York. Here we have Sean Combs, the music producer guy. Suddenly all of these people are they're not hit with any charges or any legal charges. These are lawsuits that are brought by one private party against another, all sort of coming from that Me Too thing that happened a few years ago now. And certain states have changed their laws to allow people to bring private lawsuits against those who they claim have done something to them. Now, I have no doubt that in some cases this is probably good for justice, but in other cases you have to look at who's being sued, and people might suspect that, you know, since these are private charges, these are not legal charges. So we have Axl Rose of Guns N' Roses, and different people who are getting caught up. These are people with money. So obviously the lawyers behind this who are willing to take on these cases are going to want to push for a settlement from the deep pockets of people who have money. So that's perhaps the danger of changing the laws, and they've changed these laws temporarily to invite these lawsuits against rich people with deep pockets, who at the same time may deserve it because of their bad behavior. Here we have more Trump. Trump's got a little corner on this page every day of his legal situation. Just to mention, this site, Drudge Report, was once considered, like a very right-wing site. It was the site that forced the media to address the accusations against Bill Clinton and Monica Lewinsky after the mainstream media basically said they're not going to cover it. They didn't think it was real news. Certainly they supported the Democratic president and what he was doing. So Drudge Report, this little rabble-rousing single page of links, forced them, the media, to start covering that. So he was hated for that. So when Trump came to power in 2016, it was thought that Trump went very easy, that Drudge went very easy on Trump by not putting out up the headlines on this page to trump up, so to speak, all of the negative things about President Trump, about, well, then the candidate Trump. And they thought that Trump got an easy ride from Drudge because Drudge did not highlight. This page was just highlighting top headlines, and Drudge did not highlight all this negative stuff about Trump. So Trump got a free ride in 2016. In 2020, he was a lot harder on him. And now, again, just daily, the Drudge site pushes and shows all these headlines. And even though this is just an aggregation site, this is still influential for newsrooms in the United States because it points up stories that are clickbaity that people might be interested in, and that have a human interest quality. And so this is the significance of this site. Here we have this fascinating thing. Another country down there in South America that is ditching its trying to ditch its own currency and central bank. It's a particular syndrome of countries in Central and South America that they very easily and willingly inflate their currency. They're not at all unhappy to have 100% inflation as a minimum, if not more. Anytime they need money, they just print more money. And so there's a collection of countries that have stopped using their own money and gone on the US dollar, which means they can't just print more money when they need it. And so Argentina is the latest country to try to get out of this inflationary spiral by ditching its own currency. This is sad. This is supposed to be Freddie Mercury. I don't know. I hate AI and I can't. I got all the JavaScript blocked so we don't have to see crusty toenails and those disgusting ads. But how sad, we lost a lot of people, a lot of talented people. So here we have Black Friday chaos. If anybody outside the United States, if you don't know about it, Black Friday, it's the day after Thanksgiving. And maybe about the late 1990s, early 2000s, it became super trendy to have sort of riots at stores where people would line up for ridiculous deals and fight each other. Excuse me. Just look on YouTube for Black Friday and you'll see some of these crazy things, some of these riotous situations that are occurring on that day. Here's one of the biggest malls that had a bomb scare on Black Friday. I've been there at Black Friday and gone by, your Walmart and your Target. They'll have something special, like a big screen TV for like less than half the price. And then they'll have like 2,000 of them for sale. So people will line up and fight each other for them. I don't know. You just see people waiting there at 6 a.m., 2 hours to get that deal. So it seems crazy to me. Here we have more stuff about the war in the Middle East. This is fake AI images and Hamas propaganda indoctrinating a generation as those things spread on TikTok and Twitter. So there's AI of a baby in a rubble and blowing up, and I've had some experience there in the Middle East. I know a lot of guys there from Egypt. It is sort of a situation like we have in the United States, especially on the right, far right and far left. Even though people know this isn't true, they'll still, since those Egypt guys hate Israel, they're in the common man in a lot of those Arab capitals, they hate Israel, if not Jews. They will send photos like this around to each other, even though they know it's not true. In the same way, in the United States, the right will believe in certain trendy, crazy things about vaccines they know that aren't true, but it upsets people, and it's become an issue of liberty for them. And on the left, we also have weird beliefs and condemnation of the other side over ideas that clearly are not the case. For instance, I've brought this up before. Why do people on the right hate abortion? Well, they say, because they hate women, or, they don't like women. But obviously that's not true. That's just people who support abortion preaching to themselves and preaching to the choir, as we say. So all of this will help all of this fake stuff, this so-called fake news, as they say, to spread and make stupid young people without proper intellectual vigor protest, not in support of the Palestinians, but in hatred of Israel, if not Jewish people, which is completely crazy. Completely crazy. It doesn't, it's not good enough for this liberal Western society that we think we've made, that's supposed to be intelligent and well-informed. This is too bad. I'd still like to see it, I think. The Napoleon, negative reviews. When you've seen Joaquin Phoenix in a Ridley Scott movie about Napoleon and see those pictures, it looks fantastic to me, but who knows? Somehow some rich model became a multi-million-dollar investor. I'm too jealous to read that article. I'm not interested. I don't want to know. This is a fascinating thing. Still trying to have an understanding so I can explain it to you in not too many sentences. I know it from the perspective of the United States. In the United States, they assess the value of the property you have. Like if you own a house, a property with a house on it, they like, what's all the value of all of that together? And then you get taxed for that because the government thinks they're entitled to some money from that every year. That's your property tax. But apparently that sort of system creates a syndrome in which people who just have land, unimproved land, it's taxed a lot less, and the people will just sit on that land until the land has a lot more value, and then they might sell it or develop it. And this contributes to the situation where in a lot of cities and a lot of towns, nothing's being built because people are just sitting on that property. So if you change the tax structure of property taxes to, what do they call it? It's from a book over 100 years old. So anyway, from the regular property taxes, okay, so it's a value of the land only. And then you reduce or eliminate taxes on the developments made to it. That means your house or whatever, and the appreciation of that house. It would encourage people to build on their land rather than sit on it. Of course, then some people who are sitting on their houses because they have value, changing the property taxes on them, it would, if you change from the property tax to just the land tax, it would, in theory, reduce the value of the improved property as well, and that would cause people who depend on their house as their main investment, which is the main thing in the US, it would cause people their value to go down. So that's an issue as well. So then they have this complex bureaucratic thing where you get tax credits and extra this and that. I don't know. Maybe it's a good idea. I understand that progressive taxing is probably a good idea overall. I still just think I just wonder, it's like, well, we got to tax you somehow. You got to tax on the property of the land. Why not just not tax me at all? Get your hand out of my pocket. All this is like predicated on the idea of one way or another, we're going to get that money from you. And it's just. We need that. We're the government. We got to do things to improve the world for you. I don't know. This is my like a negative, slightly old man view on sort of a things. Because once you get property in a house, you're not as interested in this first article that I showed you today. It's like, okay, I've already got my American dream. I've got something, got some land or a house. So if young people can't pay the rent, it's not my problem. I just want lower taxes. Shows how people have self-interest in mind. Okay. Another fascinating thing, why Americans can't buy cheap electric vehicles. It's because President Trump, during his time in office, put, I believe, a 25% tax on the imports of Chinese vehicles. And I'm pretty sure that's really in violation of all these sort of free trade agreements, but it does protect American businesses. And with those sort of policies still in place, if you go outside the U.S., like if you go out to Asia and all these countries in Asia, smaller countries, they're being swamped by new types of cars, names that you've never heard of before, and all of these electric vehicles, all from China, who's dominating the market. So what will this lead to? I understand, in the United States sent all of its business over to China in hopes they would create a middle class and change from within, change an autocratic system, make it more westernized and tie it into the international order. Clearly that hasn't worked. China has increased its authoritarian aspect. But okay, so say we keep our 25% tariff. What this will do is China still has the economies of scale and the cheapness of their labor. Over time, they'll just absorb that 25% tariff and be more efficient and undercut the U.S. car makers anyway, probably. I think that's a good guess. It's very difficult, even if you have the best intentions in mind, of distorting the market with tariffs and those sorts of things. Even though it's necessary to do that, I accept that it's necessary, but it usually doesn't work out in the proper way you expect. And of course, we've seen in the last week or so some articles coming up saying that the electric vehicle demand is dropping off. And the companies are cutting back. Good old Dolly Parton here in the news. I don't know if that's worth, or if anyone overseas knows this. Famous kind of country and pop music singer. She's some great. I don't even like country music. Like I think most people. There must be a big market because country music is bigger. I don't like it, but hers is a little bit middle of the road, and great songs, fascinating person, a very positive thinking, lots of, if you listen to anything where she talks about seriously, a fascinating thinker of very positive thoughts. Diet of popcorn reduces dementia risk. Then you don't take your advice from news articles in the media, even if they're supposedly based on studies. I'm not even going to click that. It's from the New York Post anyway. This is a great, no reason to click this either, but here's a polygamous desert tribe where women sleep with visitors to welcome them. That's clickbait for sure, and I'm not going to click it just to to not be baited into clicking. I don't know why this is interesting to me, but it is. A guy jumped the curb and crashed his SUV into a subway entrance in New York. I guess that's sort of clickbait because they got me to click on it. Parking in New York is difficult. Some trouble there in Ireland. Immigrants stabbing people. Then right below it, we have this far right sort of stuff, or right. You know, if anybody says anything against the EU or against really open immigration of like working age young men, just economic migration to the EU, if anybody is against that, they're suddenly far right, and it's a scary prospect. But you see, this is all related here. You have young immigrant men who come into Europe to work, not to assimilate into the culture, and to preserve their own ways of life, which might conflict with some aspects of the new country they're in. And we've had a lot of that. You know, immigration has always been a really powerful and important part of Western liberal democracies. It's one of the things where in these countries, it's a great innovation, Europe and United States, where you delink religion and ethnicity from nationality. And then that's still a very novel thing. I think if you live in the Europe or US, you think that's the normal way countries are set up. Most countries are not like that. The nationality is integrated into ethnicity and culture and religion. So perhaps in Europe, they're having a backlash a bit because of people wanting to look twice at this idea that you can always integrate and kind of have open borders and let everybody come in that wants to come in. This is what we're seeing now. This is another kind of sad thing. Local newspapers might not have a single reporter. Ghost newsrooms. And this, I was just noticing this the other week. Local newspaper that I looked at, like all of its articles and its latest news, its breaking news, its featured stories, they were all just what we used to call rip and read stuff off the wire. In a pre-internet age, we'd call it rip and read. You'd rip it and read it on the air, you know, off the teletype. But now these are all they just reprint stories from Bloomberg or Reuters, stuff like that. And we have this hollowing out, this destruction of local news and local reporting. It's even going to be accelerated because they just have this AI that aggregates a lot of garbage stuff on the internet into average generic stories. So it's the death of small town news. Boy, that got sad very quickly to me. This is a fascinating thing. As we have more roadblocks that are being put up between trade between China and the United States, we're going to have this situation where these rare earth metals and special types of metals that are needed for all the high-tech stuff that the West consumes that come from China are not available or are too expensive. So these countries, which previously just shut down all their factories, threw everybody out of work and said, you know, go work at McDonald's. You don't need health benefits and you can work part-time at McDonald's. This is part of the hollowing out of American industrial base. But now with the trade disputes, with worsening relations between United States and China, and with just a reevaluation of, you know, closing down local indigenous North American business, we have a situation where the old mines, the old factories are being opened again to satiate the demand that the Western countries will need now, that maybe China might be off limits, or just or there might be tariffs to block the cheap goods, the cheap raw materials coming from there. So, if you want to know more about me, or more how I think, you want to read a novel by me, this is my latest book. It's a novel about living in big concrete cities, young people, foreigners, locals all together, trying to make their way in the modern metropolis of Bangkok, Thailand. Their hopes, their dreams, their fears, their hopes to make money and buy themselves a house. This is what the book is about, and it's on Amazon and Kindle. I hope you'd read it, and let me know what you think. And before we go, we've been going through this deck of, these are Art of War cards. Each one has an axiom from the Art of War that in some cases we can use it to improve our lives and our business. In other cases, not so much. We recently had one that said, loot a burning house. So, okay, let's see what we got today. Raise an icon from the past. What's this about? Can I get it in focus there? Okay. Enhance your standing by linking past glory to your present cause. Empires rise and fall in the name of ideals. That's the basis of it. That's interesting. I guess this means go out and have yourself photographed with a famous person, maybe. Interesting. You link yourself to an icon, or I guess to a legacy from the past. Okay. I was slightly intrigued by that. So, okay. Those are the headlines for today. Hope you had a happy Thanksgiving yesterday. If you're in the U.S., ate some turkey. And I will see you tomorrow for more headlines.